A day after India and the United States issued a joint statement condemning Pakistan-sponsored terror, India has now slammed and exposed Pakistan at the United Nations Human Rights Council, naming Pakistan as the global hub of terrorism. Now, speaking at the high-level segment at the 43rd session of the Human Rights Council, senior diplomat and spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, Vikas Swarup, revealed how Pakistan is the world's largest exporter of terror and violence. He also revealed how most restrictions in Kashmir have been lifted and how normalcy has been restored in Kashmir despite Pakistan's increased attempts to push terrorists into India ever since the abrogation of Article 370.
Pakistan also felt it necessary to offer advice and warnings about the situation within India. To paraphrase poet Robert Burns, someone should give them the power to see themselves as others see them. Let me tell the delegation from Pakistan that India is a nation where democracy, including the right to protest, is vibrantly and noisily celebrated every day, where diversity has been a way of life since time immemorial, and where dignity of every human is protected by a robust constitutional framework. We take pride in the fact that our constitution begins by first of all safeguarding the rights of all, citizen and foreigner alike. This is entirely in the spirit of our civilization and our democracy, where we do not distinguish between the divinity inherent in all humanity. It is Pakistan that would do well to look to its own house and introspect about the condition of its people, especially its minorities.
Now, India also urged the UNHRC for global action against terror havens and a crackdown on countries that support and sponsor terrorists operating on their soil.
As a nation that has suffered from decades from cross-border terrorism, India calls for decisive action against those who direct, control, fund, abet or shelter terrorists. We are happy to note that the HRC Advisory Committee is working on a report on this issue. We remain ready to work with all partners to fully stop all support from reaching terrorists, denying terrorists access to safe havens, and extraditing and bringing to justice perpetrators of terrorism and their supporters. Excellency, speaking of terrorism, it is only logical to respond to the remarks made by the delegation of Pakistan, which is the epicenter of global terrorism. It is more than a little ironical that the nation that has become the world's leading exporter of terror and violence seeks to lecture others about human rights.
Just a day earlier, India and the United States had issued a joint statement condemning Pakistan-sponsored terror in the region. The Indo-US joint statement read, and I quote, Prime Minister Modi and President Trump denounced any use of terrorist proxies and strongly condemned cross-border terrorism in all its forms. They called on Pakistan to ensure that no territory under its control is used to launch terrorist attacks, and to expeditiously bring to justice the perpetrators of such attacks, including the 26/11 Mumbai and Pathankot, end quote. Now, President Trump, during his two-day visit to India, had also expressed confidence on Prime Minister Modi to deal with terrorism in the region.
On trade, on fighter jets, on commercial airlines and various other things, and energy. There are two sides to every story, but they've been working on that very hard. We discussed it at great length, terrorism. We talked a lot about Pakistan. I have a very good relationship with Prime Minister Khan, very good. We talked about it today at length, actually, and Prime Minister Modi. And it's no question it's a problem, but it's a problem they're working on it. India is, it's a brave nation, too. There's no pullback from India.
WION's principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, is joining us for more on this. Good evening to you, Siddhant. Now, India is slamming Pakistan as the hub of terror. Now, this following the joint statement between U.S. President and Prime Minister Modi just yesterday.
Well, a strong message being sent by New Delhi and Washington, of course, starting with the joint statement. We know the joint statement slammed Islamabad and asked Islamabad to act on the issue of cross-border terrorism, also naming a lot of terrorist groups from Pakistan. But today's development is development coming from Geneva, where Indian diplomat spoke talking about how Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, how Pakistan needs to act, and the Indian diplomat also highlighted how terrorism is a form of human rights violation. This is interesting given the fact that just a day earlier we saw how the Pakistani delegate, the human rights minister of Pakistan, was slamming India, but that was expected as well. The statement made by the Indian diplomat is a national statement. This statement, of course, also highlights India's issues, whether it's climate change, whether it is the Indian government's policy of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and also when it comes to Jammu and Kashmir, we know that the Indian diplomat highlighted how the restrictions are being removed and how telecom services are being put in place. But largely, if we look at the larger picture, we know that it's just not New Delhi, it's also Kabul and Washington as well, who have been making sure that Pakistan acts when it comes to the issue of terrorism. We know all these three countries have convergences on the issue of cross-border terrorism coming from Pakistan. We know the Americans have helped India a lot when it comes to listing of terrorists based in Pakistan, and also at FATF. We know Pakistan remains on FATF's grey list, and that is having a serious impact on the Pakistani economy.
Now, India calling for action from Pakistan to act against terror on its soil. Now, is this already India coming to the fore in terms of being a major peacekeeping nation in the region, and this already at the 43rd meet of the UNHRC?
Well, we know the US President Donald Trump just visited India, 2-day visit. He mentioned India as a net security provider in the region. He said that India should take a leadership role when it comes to providing security in the region. Something, of course, that won't make Islamabad happy. But also, we need to take in account that soon the Americans and the Taliban will be having a deal that can see the American troops leaving Afghanistan after 19 years. In fact, this was mentioned in the joint statement. The measures taken by India when it comes to Afghanistan, how India has been playing a development role in Afghanistan. We know India has developed a lot of infrastructure projects, whether it is the India-Afghanistan Friendship Dam in Herat or whether it's the Afghan Parliament building. But of course, India will be fearful if Taliban comes back, the role Taliban will be playing in the government there, in the society of Afghanistan, because in last 19 years, Afghanistan has come as a democratic society. India is very happy about it. In fact, after the re-election of the current president, Mr. Ghani, India was the first country to fully back him. But it seems that the Ghani government right now is being isolated. But by and large, if you look at India's role in the region, it has been a very active role. A country that is not only providing assistance, but also helping in capacity building, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Sri Lanka, Maldives, or other parts of South Asia, including Nepal.
Siddhant, thank you very much for that report. That's our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Saboo, bringing us the latest from that 43rd UNHRC meet.